Hey, I'm RC and this is the episode 22 about creating a game in HTML5. So if you haven't watched the last episode, then I would highly recommend you to do so by clicking the annotation on the screen. So for this video I got a lot in mind. So the first thing we are going to do is to clean up the code a little bit. So get rid of global function and turn it into static class function. It will make more sense when I will explain it. I also want to add HP bar on top of the monster and make it so when you hold the mouse down it keeps shooting instead of doing nothing. So it's going to be kind of handy. So let's get started. Okay, so this is our code right now, and the first thing we are going to do is to get rid of most global variables. So what is a global variable? Well, it's anything you can access directly. So for example, update, I want to access update, I just tap update and then I can call it right away. I want to call update bullet, I can call it right away. I want to access the player, it's there directly. So the great thing about global variable is that it's very easy to use, but it makes it very hard to have big projects because there can be collision in the names. For example, let's say that in my right here I create a new function and I call it update. It was meant for updating, let's say, enemies, but I call it update, and it turns out that it will override this function right there, so the entire game will get broken. And obviously for a game of that size it's not really a big deal, but it's a very good habit to not make global variable and instead make static class functions. Basically it means to put stuff that are related together. So let's take that function right there, update bullet, and let's place it here next to the bullet function or the bullet class. Now right now there's no link between bullet and update bullet. You just need to know if you're if you're an external programmer and you see that code, you need to know that, oh, update bullet is linked with bullets. But there's a way to make the link between the two more obvious, is by doing this right there. So bullet.update. Now it's very obvious that bullet.update is linked with bullets because they are linked together. This is like an object and this is an well, anyway, it's a bit complicated. But this is the proper way to do it, and it's no longer a global variable. Bullet is still global, but bullet update is not, and this is the proper way to do it. So yeah, keep in mind that this is very different than, let's say, self-update. So self-update is updating one bullet in particular, and it's using the, inside the function it's using self. Bullet update is just a rename that we have done, and we don't have access to anything in particular. Like, we still need to look through every bullet list and do all that stuff. So yeah, let's just do it for everything. So this would become upgrade.updates, updating every bullets, upgrades, and finally for the enemies, let's do it that way. Now there's still a little bit more stuff that we need to change with this new notation. So for example, enemy list is a global variable right now. So the proper way to do it would be to name it, let's say, the enemy list. So enemy.list. So everywhere where we use the enemy list, we are going to rename it for enemy list that way. Boom. And same goes for the bullet list. Bullet list will become bullet list. Boom. Upgrade list. There we go. So I made the rename everywhere, and this is how it looks now. So we got enemy, which is the class or the prototype. Then we got enemy list, enemy update, enemy randomly generate, upgrade, upgrade list, etc. So it's a lot cleaner now. It might not make a big difference now, but in the long term, it's going to be very handy to have this notation right there. So what we are going to do next is we will make it so when the player clicks, it keeps shooting if the player is holding the button instead of having to spam click. So right now what we do is that when the player clicks, we call the function perform attack. And what we will do instead is exactly the same thing that we did for movement. So it's something like that. We will need to keep track of if the player is pressing the button or not. And if he is, then we will assume that he wants to perform an attack. So if we go in our entity, in our player, we'll add 2 new variables that will be pressing mouse left and pressing mouse right. And by default, those will be false. Now we will rename onClick. So the function for mouse down is on mouse down, and then we will say a pressing mouse left equal true. Now one thing to keep in mind is that mouse down is used for both the left click and the right click. So in order to know which one is left click and right click, we'll do this right there. So this is how you do it. If mouse.which equal 1, then it's the left click. Otherwise, it's another button. But for this video, it's just, we are going to assume that it's the right click right there. And we no longer need the onContext menu. Well, actually, we still need to prevent the default, but we will no longer perform the special attack when you click it. And then when the player moves up, so on mouse up, we are going to set it back to false. Exactly like we did with the key on key down and on key up. Now in the update function of the player, so self update, it does not have a self update, so we'll need to create it. If you remember correctly, we want to save the old update, and then we want to overwrite it with a new function. So we call the supper, which was the old code, so the default code, and on top of it we add this. So if we are pressing the mouse left, then we assume that we want to perform the attack. And if we are holding right, we want to perform the special attack. And performing the attack, I think it's the actor, we do check if the attack counter is high enough. So we can call it multiple times. It's not going to attack multiple times if it does not have charged its attack. So let's test this out. So I'm here, I hold down the left button, and as you can see, I shoot multiple times. So what we have done so far does indeed work. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to make it so the monster have an HP bar on top of their head. So how we will do that, first we will need to keep track of what is the maximum HP the monster has. So right here we say, oh, the monster has an HP variable, and we will also have a HP max, which will be equal to the initial HP value. Now most people will name it max HP. I do not really recommend that, because normally you see all the attributes in alphabetic order, and if you put max HP, it's going to be very difficult. They will not be grouped together. If you name it HP max, it's going to be grouped together, and it makes more sense too. Normally it's from general to more precise, and eventually what we will have is something like HP regen and other stuff like that. So that's the naming convention I use. So now that we have HP max, what we are going to do, I don't know if we should do that for both the actor or just the monsters. I think for now I will just make it for the enemies, and eventually if we want to make it for the player too, we could simply move the code to the actor place. Anyway, so right here what I'm going to do is to override the draw function of the monster. So we will do a supper draw, and the new content will be, hey, let's draw the same thing than before, and on top of that we are also going to draw the HP bar. So the hardest part with the HP bar is to know where to draw it. So if I remember correctly, in the entity, okay, so this is the logic to find where to draw the monster. We will reuse that code. It's a bit bad to use that code 2 times. You normally don't want to have duplicate code, but in that case we don't really have the choice. Then we do that. And then we would most likely want to do that, and maybe a -20. So this should be about 20 pixels above the head of the monster. And the middle, the X is in the middle of the monster. So what we are going to do is we are going to save the Canva and then restore it. So we make sure to not screw everything. And then we will set the fill style. So the fill style will be red. Now we need to come up with the width. So the width will be, let's say, 100 times the HP divided by the HP max. So by default, if it's equal, if those are equal, this becomes 1. And if it's 0, then the whole thing becomes 0. So it's like a percentage. This is like the ratio. And just to make sure, if the width is less than 0, we make the width equal 0. Because if the HP is negative, it's going to screw all our code. And then we will fill rec. The X position will be, let's say that, the Y, and then a width of width, and Y plus 10. So there we go. And then we need to do the stroke. So stroke style. So it will be a black border, and inside it, it's going to be red. So that's what I'm currently doing. And then we do that. So X, this, Y. The width will be 100 for the black border. Something like that. So if we save, we go back here, and we messed up something. Yeah. Let's go back here. Width divided height. Oh, wait. It's not Y, it's just 10. This is like the height needs to be. Oh, okay, now it makes a lot more sense. Now if I shoot, for example, well, they die instantly, but if I shoot that bad, then it becomes half HP, and then it dies. So yeah, everything seems to be working correctly. So I guess that will be pretty much it for this video. I hope you liked it, and don't forget to click the annotation on the screen to go check out the next episode. See ya!